Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence when Al B. Sure stepped forward, not as a celebrity, not as an ex-partner, but as a man claiming he nearly lost his life for knowing too much. In a trial already brimming with scandal, his voice added a haunting new layer. With a grim expression, he recalled the warnings Kim Porter gave him before her mysterious death. A woman once full of life, now reduced to autopsy reports and whispers. Al claims her death wasn't what they told us, and what he's been through since only deepens the suspicion. From his sudden, unexplained coma to the chilling final conversations he had with Kim, the dots are beginning to connect in ways nobody expected. And now, he's testifying under oath, suggesting Diddy might not just be guilty of crimes in plain sight, but also of secrets buried with the dead. This isn't a story about music. It's a reckoning years in the making. When Al B. Sure entered the courtroom, the tension became palpable. This wasn't just another witness. He was someone with direct personal history involving Kim Porter, someone who had been publicly hinting for years that her death was anything but natural. Clad in a sharp charcoal suit and visibly emotional, Al sat down, glanced at Diddy for a brief moment, then fixed his eyes straight ahead. You could almost feel the weight in the room shift. For years, people dismissed Al's claims as conspiracy, bitterness, or attention-seeking. But now, under oath, his words would carry more power than ever before. His testimony began not with an accusation, but with a reflection. A memory of Kim that stunned the gallery. He described her laugh, her energy, her devotion to her children. Then, suddenly, he shifted gears. Kim warned me years before she passed. She said, "You're too trusting. If you keep being this open with everyone, you're going to get hurt. Or worse." I didn't understand her back then. Now I do. According to Al, Kim had told him plainly that she feared for her life. That people in Diddy's inner circle were not just enablers, but dangerous. The judge asked him to stay on topic. He took a breath and continued. "I'm here because I believe what happened to Kim was not natural. And I believe what happened to me, my coma, was not accidental." That drew gasps from the back row. Al then described in detail the timeline leading up to his sudden medical crisis in 2022, which doctors called multi-organ failure. At the time, it was mysterious. He was healthy, he had no prior warning signs. It was like my body shut down. One day I was fine, the next I was gone. Flatline. He paused before adding, "And that wasn't the first time I felt targeted." Court officials confirmed that Al had been subpoenaed and had initially tried to avoid testifying out of fear. "But I realized," he said, "that silence is the real death sentence. And if I didn't speak now, everything I've lived through, and what Kim died trying to tell us, would be in vain." As reporters scrambled to relay updates from the courthouse hallway, it became clear. This was not going to be a typical celebrity trial. This was about secrets, old ones, dangerous ones, ones that people have tried to bury along with the bodies. Al B. Sure didn't hold back when asked about the nature of his relationship with Kim Porter in her final years. "We were close. We always stayed in touch, even when we weren't romantic anymore. There was a mutual respect, and then concern. She was afraid." Al then shared one of the final conversations he had with Kim, just weeks before her sudden death. "She told me, 'They're watching me. They tap my calls. I feel like someone's always outside my house.'" The prosecution leaned in. This was exactly the kind of statement that reinforced their narrative. That Kim had been silenced. Al elaborated. He said Kim kept a detailed notebook, possibly a diary, that contained names, dates, locations. She told me, "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident." Al added that Kim had been preparing to go public with information that would ruin lives. She allegedly planned to expose how Diddy controlled not just her life, but others around him, using manipulation, threats, and surveillance. Then came the bombshell. Al claimed that after Kim died, a private investigator working for him tried to retrieve her personal belongings from her home. But the house had already been cleaned out. Her phone, her laptop, the notes, everything was gone. Like it was scrubbed, like someone knew what to look for. He also described a disturbing experience with law enforcement after Kim's death. I told them what she said to me. I begged them to look into it. Instead, they laughed, told me I was paranoid, said I should focus on grief counseling. That same day, he says, he was warned not to speak to the press. Not by police, but by a friend of a friend. They said I was poking around too much. This wasn't just Al repeating old rumors. This was testimony under oath, recounting exact dates and statements. Prosecutors submitted medical records showing Al's unexplained collapse and hospitalization, suggesting a potential connection. "It felt like someone wanted me out of the way," he said. "They couldn't shut Kim up, so they made her disappear. I got lucky." When asked about Kim's alleged book, Al nodded. "She told me she had it written, told me she had it locked in a safe deposit box, but I never saw it. After she died, it was gone. Never mentioned again." Courtroom jaws dropped when Al B. Sure pivoted to the medical emergency that nearly took his life. It wasn't just bad health, it was an attack. I believe that now more than ever. He detailed how, in October 2022, he suddenly collapsed and was placed in a medically induced coma for over 2 months. "I flatlined twice. My liver, my kidneys, they shut down like someone had flipped a switch." The connection to Diddy? Al claimed that just before his health crash, he had been meeting with a journalist to share what Kim had told him years ago. The interview was never published, and within days, I was in a coma. But he didn't stop there. Al brought up the suspicious deaths of others connected to Diddy and Uptown Records. Kim? Dead? Andre Harrell? Heart attack. Heavy D? Heart failure. All had books or memoirs in progress. All died before they could finish them. He then added, "You tell me that's a coincidence." He revealed something else, something never reported before, that in the weeks before his coma, he had been anonymously mailed a flash drive. It had voice memos, names, timestamps, some things I didn't even recognize at first. That drive, he said, mysteriously vanished from his home during his hospitalization. My security cameras were disabled that night. It was like someone knew exactly when I'd be out of commission. At this point in his testimony, even Diddy looked shaken, reportedly asking his attorney to request a break. The judge declined. Al ended this segment by reading part of a letter Kim once wrote to him, allegedly just days before her death. "I'm scared. If anything happens, take care of Quincy. And don't stop fighting. You'll know when the time comes." It was the first time the courtroom had heard these words, and as they echoed through the chamber, you could feel it. This wasn't just testimony anymore. It was a warning from the grave. As the courtroom sat in silence, Al B. Sure cleared his throat and continued with what may have been the most chilling part of his testimony. "There was a bounty on my head. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was paranoia. But after everything that's happened, it's survival instinct." He detailed a moment from early 2023 when he was alerted by a former music industry insider, someone he'd known for years, that people in high places were tired of him snooping around. Al said he was warned to stop mentioning Kim's name in interviews, to delete cryptic social media posts, and to let go of the past. The message wasn't casual. It was a threat. "I started receiving anonymous texts, Stay out of it. Don't speak unless you want the same outcome. At first, I thought it was spam. But when my car brakes failed on the highway a week later, I knew this wasn't a joke. According to court records, Al filed 2 police reports in 2023 about vehicle tampering and threatening messages, both dismissed for lack of evidence. But now, under oath, he laid it all bare. "I'm not saying Diddy personally called someone to hurt me," Al said, pausing, "but I am saying this. When powerful men feel cornered, they don't get their hands dirty. They let their money speak for them." Then he dropped another bombshell. A former Bad Boy Records employee, unnamed in court documents, allegedly contacted Al through a third party to make things go away. They reportedly offered him $500,000 to retract earlier comments he made about Kim's death and to publicly state he had no concerns. Al refused. "I couldn't live with myself," he told the jury. "She meant too much. And my son deserves the truth about what happened to his mother." Al admitted he had spent the last year sleeping with a firearm near his bed. He hired private security, changed his phone number multiple times, and stopped giving interviews. "It was like being stalked by shadows. I couldn't prove anything, but I felt it. And now that I'm on this stand, I know they're listening." As the room hung on his every word, the prosecution made a statement to the judge. "We intend to present additional evidence of attempted witness tampering and threats against Mr. Shore." That statement sent a wave of murmurs through the courtroom, because if proven, it could be enough to trigger further charges, possibly obstruction of justice. The judge then shifted the conversation to November 15, 2018, the day Kim Porter was found dead. Prosecutors asked Al to recount everything he knew from that day and the days prior. "It was supposed to be a normal week," he began. "We were all celebrating Quincy's Netflix deal. Everyone was there. Me, Kim, Diddy, the kids." Al described Kim as vibrant and healthy, dancing with her children, sharing laughs with old friends. "There was no sign of illness. None." That night, Kim reportedly told Al she was nervous. When he pressed her, she just said, "I feel like I'm being watched again." It wasn't the first time Kim had made such remarks. What disturbed the courtroom most, though, was the inconsistency in how Kim was found. According to Al's testimony, he was told by someone close to the house staff that Kim wasn't discovered peacefully in her bed, as the public was led to believe, but in the bathroom, on the floor, near the tub. And not just that. There were allegedly blood stains on her pillowcase and a trail that led from the bed to the bathroom. Al said he tried to get access to the autopsy, but was denied. When I asked why, they told me the results were sealed. "By who?" I asked. No answer. The more I pushed, the more people backed off. Then came the revelation about the 911 call. Official records state that Kim was found unresponsive around 11 a.m. But Al says she called 911 herself at 2:43 a.m. that morning. Why did no one respond sooner? Why did they say it was a pneumonia-related death if she had been screaming for help in the middle of the night? Al continued, "If Kim called for help and she was in distress at 2:43 a.m., why wasn't she found until nearly 9 hours later? And why does the coroner's report say she was discovered in bed, when I've seen private photos that show otherwise?" Courtroom whispers became louder. Prosecutors requested to enter new photographic evidence into the record, reportedly showing what they claim is blood on the bed frame and a disheveled bathroom floor. The defense objected, but the judge allowed it. And then Al turned directly toward Diddy. "You know what she told me, Sean?" She said, "If anything happens to me, protect Quincy. He's the one they'll come for next." In one of the most gripping turns of the trial, Al B. Shore revealed the alleged existence of recordings. Tapes, he says, were made by Kim herself. She told me she kept an old-school tape recorder in her room. She didn't trust cell phones, said they could be hacked. She had hours of recordings. According to Al, Kim documented her calls, her conversations with assistants, even her fights with Diddy. She said if anything ever happened, those tapes would explain it all. They were her insurance. But after her death, gone, Al said. When I asked the family where her safe was, they said it was empty. The tapes, her journals, her hard drives, all gone. Someone got there before we could. He also testified that Kim had a manuscript for a memoir she'd been quietly working on for years. She told me, it's not just my story, it's everyone's story. I'm going to tell the truth about the industry, about Diddy, about what it means to survive in this world. According to Al, Kim feared the backlash, but also believed the story needed to be told. She said, if I don't write it, someone will just make something up when I'm gone. But Kim wasn't the only one writing a book. Al pointed out that Andre Harrell, who mentored Diddy, was reportedly in the process of finishing a memoir when he died of an alleged heart attack in 2020. He told me, I'm going to put the truth in it. That was the last time I spoke to him. Heavy D, another figure from the Uptown Records era, died of a pulmonary embolism in 2011. According to Al, he had just started writing. I remember because he texted me asking for a publisher contact. Al then stared at the jury. What do all these people have in common? They all knew Diddy. They all had stories. And now they're all gone. He concluded with a chilling final thought. I don't think Kim died of pneumonia. I think she died of silence, of keeping secrets for too long, and I was almost next. After a brief recess, the prosecution returned with what they described as critical medical context, tied directly to Al B. Sure's near-death experience in 2022. The courtroom grew tense as Al described the moment he woke up from a coma, surrounded by confused doctors and devastated family. They said I had multi-organ failure, he said softly. They couldn't explain why. No signs of prior illness, no clear trigger, just collapse. Al revealed for the first time in court that 2 weeks before he slipped into the coma, he had been contacted by a third party claiming to represent an old friend, a friend he later assumed was Diddy. The man reportedly told Al to back off the Kim talk and offered him a financial courtesy in exchange for silence. When Al refused, he claims things escalated quickly. He testified that strange things began happening. His home Wi-Fi was inexplicably disabled for days. His tires were slashed, and he caught a man trying to access his building who ran off when confronted. Then I got sick. Fast, unnaturally fast. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. Within days, I was in the ER, and then I woke up a month later in the ICU. According to Al, toxicology tests showed substances in his blood that did not match anything prescribed or ingested voluntarily. They told me I had been poisoned, he claimed, but the official medical report listed undetermined complications leading to organ failure. No police report was ever filed. The prosecution asked Al whether he believed this was a targeted attack. He responded, yes, I think I was silenced, temporarily, and I'm not alone. People around this man, people who know the truth, get erased, sick, or buried. Then he dropped another bombshell. Kim told me she once caught someone trying to spike her wine during a dinner party. She thought it was a prank until she got dizzy and passed out. She never found out who did it, but she was always paranoid after that. The courtroom was silent. Diddy, seated at the defense table, stared down at the floor, not even glancing at Al. The judge instructed the prosecution to provide the jury with Al's full medical file for corroboration. This wasn't just a singer giving testimony anymore. This was now being framed as a man who barely escaped death, believed someone in Diddy's circle had tried to finish what they started with Kim. As the trial resumed, the prosecutors brought forward what they called corroborative material from private investigators hired by Al B. Sure after his recovery. The investigators, hired in 2023, presented evidence that Al had been tailed by unknown individuals during multiple public appearances. Dashcam footage, stills from store cameras, and geolocation pings all showed a pattern. Someone was following him. Al stated under oath that the surveillance was constant, aggressive, and unsettling. When I went to Quincy's Netflix screening, I noticed a man in sunglasses recording me. When I turned toward him, he vanished, but I saw him again and again at different locations. I'm not crazy. I've lived through enough to know when someone wants you gone. But the most disturbing part came when Al recalled a conversation with Kim just months before her death. He said, "If anything happens to me, don't trust what they say. Look deeper. And don't let Quincy near Sean unless you're there. The court then heard a voicemail from Kim to Al, recovered from his phone backups. It was sent weeks before she died and had never been played publicly until now. Her voice, calm but trembling, said, "Hey, it's me. I don't want to text this, so I'm just calling. Something doesn't feel right lately. If something happens, you need to tell the truth. Don't let them write my ending. You know what we've seen, what we've lived through. Watch your back. Al." This voicemail changed the mood in the courtroom. Members of the jury looked shaken. One even wiped away tears. The defense tried to argue that the message could be interpreted in many ways, but the emotional impact was already done. Al continued, "She was scared, and she had reason to be. Her phones were tapped. Her home had cameras she didn't install. She said she once found a recording device in her child's stuffed toy. And you think she just died of pneumonia?" Al stated that Kim had planned to move out of Los Angeles in early 2019. She told Al she wanted to disappear quietly with the kids, somewhere no one could find her. But she never got that chance. In the final portion of Al's testimony, he brought up the project that had reportedly gotten Kim killed. A book, not the one that was released after her death with sanitized diary entries, but an unpublished manuscript Kim had been secretly compiling since 2012. She kept everything in a black notebook, Al testified. She called it her lifeline. It had names, dates, voice memos, burner phones with recording, all gone. According to Al, Kim was planning to release the book under a pseudonym through a European publisher. She had even given Al a glimpse of the chapters. One detailed her first encounter with Diddy's darkroom parties. Another revealed violent outbursts no one ever spoke about. In perhaps the most emotional moment of the trial, Al read a section from an email Kim once sent him that he had saved. "If this gets me killed, please know I did my best. I don't want to be remembered as some model or music mogul's ex. I want my story told honestly, even if it comes from the grave." The jury was visibly moved. A few audience members, including women who claimed to have worked with Kim, were seen crying. Al concluded she wanted to be more than a footnote in his story. She was a mother, a survivor, and someone who finally got tired of being silenced. And now, I owe it to her to make sure the silence ends. With that, the prosecution rested. Al B. Sure stepped down from the witness stand, not as a grieving ex, not as a musician, but as a man who may have just helped unlock one of the darkest, most carefully buried secrets in hip-hop history. And as the courtroom emptied out for the day, whispers lingered about what Al just unleashed, because it wasn't just testimony, it was a bombshell.